So, what we're going to talk about is the next category in natural healing that determines your current health level, and if you change it, can help you rapidly heal yourself. And that's the emotions and the spirit. One of the first things we'll look at is a little bit later today, I'm going to go into the immune system and discuss the immune system. But a very interesting thing before we get there, science has found on the surface of immune cells, because cells have all type of surface receptor sites for all types of various things, from chemicals to hormones in your body that you create for a metabolic balance, to vitamins, to minerals, all types of ways, because everything that you take in your body, you want to get in that cell. Your vitamins, your minerals, because those cells are just little bits of you. Cells of your liver, cells of your brain, cells of your heart. And then you want to get the waste out. Well, very interesting discovery on the surface of many of the major immune cells, they found one receptor for what's called a neuropeptide. Now, what's fascinating about that is neuropeptides are brain chemicals manufactured by the brain in response to your thoughts. So you know that feeling you get when you go, I'm in love? That's neuropeptides. That's what science calls neuropeptides. Or how about that feeling when that person pulls right in front of you and stops and you wish you had the Star Trek lasers right there on the steering wheel? That's a neuropeptide. Or how about when you hate and you know you're mad, you are really mad? You know that feeling you get all through your body? Neuropeptides. What's fascinating about this little teeny neuropeptide receptor here is science now knows that your immune system is a receptor for the chemicals you create with your emotions. So science has now deduced that your immune system is listening to and reacting to your emotional dialogue. Your immune system is listening to and reacting to your emotional dialogue. What's our emotional dialogue? I am shocked at our emotional dialogue. I saw an article in a major newspaper. They polled 1,000 people. They said, are you dissatisfied with your job, and what would you rather do? All 1,000 responses, 100%, were dissatisfied with their job, and they all wanted to be doing something else. The brain surgeons wanted to be train engineers. The train engineers wanted to be painters. The painters wanted to be rocket scientists. The rocket scientists wanted to be rocket astronauts, and the astronauts wanted to be brain surgeons. How is it we're all doing what we don't want to do? Think about that. Now, what's that doing for our immune system? I saw another poll. 1,000 women polled in one of the women's magazines. What is your response to how you feel about the size and shape of your breast and the placement of your nipple? And 100%, all 1,000 women wrote back and said they were dissatisfied with the size and shape of their breast or the way their nipple is. Now, is it any accident that the #1 cancer with women is breast cancer? Do you think you can look in the mirror day after day, day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, and hate a piece of your body and expect it not to rot? I don't think so. In fact, what I saw in my clinic was the most powerful healing tool of all was right here. And if my patients didn't get it right here, I couldn't keep them alive with bowel cleansing. Everything follows this right here. My patients needed a colonic between the ears. When I wake up in the morning, I get myself up. You know, I used to watch Dr. Christopher used to wake up and take a deep breath and go, it's great to be alive. Now that's a wonderful affirmation. He might still be alive today if it wasn't for his accident. Dr. Jensen used to wake up and pound his chest and go, I love life. What a great affirmation. What's our affirmation? I wake up in the morning, I go in the bathroom, and I look and I go, yeah! Yeah, Dr. Schulze, good guy. I mean, this is the way we have to do it. I used to have my immune tincture. It said on the bottle, take 2 dropperfuls 3 times a day and say, I love you 50 times in the mirror. Okay? And people think that's silly. That's silly. Let's not talk about the mind. There's a separation here. It's the physical body, and then it's psychiatry. And they're not connected. Well, the French proved that you can't separate the two with the guillotine and anything will work anymore, right? You can't separate this. It's like Cindy said, it's not pieces and parts, is it? It's not pieces and parts. It all works together. Every disease has its physical, emotional, and spiritual part to it. You just can't get physically ill. It's impossible. You just can't get mentally ill. It's impossible. I've cured people with chronic, killing depression to where they were frozen and couldn't talk for years just by cleaning their bowels and nothing else, and they're back at work teaching school. I've cured people with physical ailments just by talking to them. Just by talking to them. Had a young lady come to me, 22 years old, dying of myasthenia gravis. Myasthenia gravis, another one of the nerve degeneration diseases. Nowadays you'll hear from doctors that myasthenia gravis, Tourette syndrome, most all your neurological diseases where the nerve system is degenerating are autoimmune diseases. You hear this now, you read it in the medical books. Autoimmune diseases. What does that mean? It means that your immune system, instead of eating up the bad guys, is eating you up. Is eating you up. Instead of your immune system protecting you, it's killing you. It's killing you. I have a friend who's a psychotherapist that says, how could you even have one of those if you love yourself? How could you have an autoimmune disease unless you're playing tapes for suicide with yourself? Think about that. It's a heck of a responsibility, isn't it? So she came to my clinic and was in the last stages. She was dying. Her mother brought her in. She was crying. Lost her eyesight. Was almost totally blind now. 22 years old. Beautiful young girl from the Middle East. She was almost graduating college. Amateur tennis pro. Losing her ability to swallow, was starting to choke on her saliva and not being able to breathe. She was dying. And this is how you die with myasthenia gravis many times, is you choke to death on your own saliva or suffocate to death. A wonderful way to go. I started talking with her and talking with Mom, and she was a student. There were 12 children in the family. They were all back in the Middle East, but she was the family star. And she was out here going to be a doctor, and also going to be a tennis pro. And she was taking 4 years of classes in 3 years because she was so smart. And in her few hours of spare time, she was taking tennis lessons. And during the first session, all I heard was what Mom wanted and what the family wanted and how dependent the brothers and sisters were. And during the first session, I said to her, well, what do you want? What would you like? I said to the young lady. And she said, I hate school. And her mother flipped, almost went to slap her and had to hold herself. Her mother flipped out. And I said, you hate school? I said, you know what? I hate school. And her mother was almost going to slap me. Her mother said, we have spent the entire family's money to put you, the chosen one, through school, and you're going to sit there and disgrace the family. And I said, hey, Mom, calm down a little bit. I want to hear what your daughter has to say. She said, I hate tennis. And she went through her hate list, and she was crying. She couldn't focus her eyes. She couldn't even see me. And I said, okay, gave her some herbs, and they came back in a week. She was worse. I kind of figured she'd be. I said, what do you want? And, you know, she hated. I just heard about what she hated, gave her some herbs, came back in a few weeks. She was worse. I figured it. Finally, on the third visit, I said, well, I think I can heal you of your myasthenia gravis, or at least put a big dent in it. You got a lot of work to do here with us. And I said, what do you want? And she goes, I just want to go back to Saudi Arabia. I want to go back to Saudi Arabia and live with my family and live a simple life. I hate school, I hate tennis. And I said, great. I said, I want you to go back to Saudi Arabia. And her mother flipped out, leaped out of her chair, screamed at me, screamed at her daughter. I had to take her mother aside, and I said, look, I think you got a choice here. A dead doctor, tennis pro. Tennis pros don't look very good when they're dead. Or a live daughter in Saudi Arabia. She said, okay. We'll go back to Saudi Arabia. In 24 hours, her eyesight came back. Before they even got on the plane, her eyesight came back. And I mean, she was on prescription glasses to the point where they were this thick, and she still couldn't focus. They took her on a holiday. They thought a good place to take someone on a holiday with a nervous disorder was Las Vegas. I said, what was it like? She goes, I don't know. It was just a blur of lights. That's the place you want to go with a nervous disorder, isn't it? Inside the ball of electricity and noise. Okay. Bad choice. I could have picked somewhere else. New York City. They got on the plane to Saudi Arabia, and the day after they landed, she didn't have a trace of that disease and hasn't since. Now, myasthenia gravis is a very serious physiological autoimmune disease. But that just goes to show you that you never know exactly where the key is to your healing, and that's why the Dr. Schulze broad spectrum program. I've had hundreds of doctors come up to me and say, you know, Dr. Schulze, all your research is useless. And I said, why is that? And they said, because you don't know which one of these keys or ingredients it was that healed the patient. And I said, I don't care. God. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Made a little mess. I don't care. What's the focus? Help people get well. We're not doing some research project here, are we? No. I could tell you 100 stories about the change people made here, and it healed them here, here, and here, and another 100 stories about the changes people made here, here, and here, and it healed this. It's all one unit, right? Yes. Well, now I don't know what to do. No, I don't need that. I just need my one little piece of paper here somewhere so I can talk to you. I can talk to you about throwing things away. Thank you. I'm healed. Got it. I don't need this one anymore. Thank you. And one marker. Down to one marker, one piece of paper, and a grape. A peeled grape and a glass of distilled water. That's all I need for life.
Can I give you this back?
Yeah, thank you.
I'm getting you a little bit organized.
Okay, thank you. That's Sally's job. Whew, get me organized after my fits. What I'd like to talk to you about now is also part tears. I watch my son. My son comes in and goes, hi, Dr. Danny. I go, hi, Arthur. How are you today? And he goes, great. Everything's great. And I go, oh, what's that? And he goes, and he pours tears. We have found now that in tears, when you have stress in your body, there are waste chemicals that occur, and they're finding them all in tears. And one of the reasons they're theorizing now that women live longer than men is just because they cry more. Cry more. Doesn't mean women are weaker. Doesn't mean they're just able to deal with their stress immediately and better. Many women are. So we need to cry more. We need to let it out. We need to express it. One of the things that's helped my patients a lot was this right here. What I just did. Dumping it. I was in my office one day, and one of my patients came in, and I was talking to them, and they weren't paying much attention to me. They were looking at my diplomas. I had at my peak of diplomas, 27 diplomas on the wall of my office. So yes, I'm overtrained. 27 diplomas up there, 3 from Dr. Jensen, 4 from Dr. Christopher. I had diplomas from all over the place. 8 styles of body therapy I certified in. I just loved to study. And I had all these diplomas. But I was really getting bored with my patients looking at my diplomas and not looking at this gorgeous person right here. And sometimes they'd even bring in things I wrote and say, well, it says right here, Dr. Schulze, that you said. I said, hey, I'm here. They weren't listening to me. They were quoting me to me. And I used to shake them and rattle them. And one day, one patient just looked at one diploma too long. And I said, let me see that diploma. And it was one from Dr. Jensen. I took it down, and I put my fist right through it and tore it in half. That patient got a session they weren't counting on. And then I took another one down and smashed it and ripped it up. And I started with 27 diplomas, had my knuckles cut, and I was shredding them all and ripping them up in my office. Then I found my stethoscope and put one foot on the bell end and stretched it and ripped it until it snapped. Then I got my sphygmomanometer, who would name something that way anyway, and tore up my blood pressure cuff. And then I opened the window of my second-story clinic and started throwing my office furniture out of it into a dumpster that was placed perfectly below. Finally, I looked, and there was my library, 3,000 books on natural healing, never got me well. But the reason I was keeping them is because I thought it was very impressive that I had 3,000 books on natural healing, even though I knew it was all a bunch of lies. And I started taking those books by the handful, and I emptied them out the window. This process took me 3 to 4 hours, and I was throwing this stuff out all over outside, what I called my first time of trashing. I threw everything out except one table lamp, and all there was left in my office was one little table lamp sitting on the floor because I threw my table out. And I looked back after about 3 hours of this in a frenzy and a sweat, and the patient was just standing in the corner. I told her, I ought to charge you double for this one. No one was going to look at my diplomas, my books, my stethoscope, my equipment ever again. It was just me sitting in my office. I remember the next morning a patient came, first patient in the clinic. I said, come on in, and there was nothing in the room. I said, well, we'll just sit on the floor. I cut out all the distractions in my clinic. People love to distract themselves. This is called trashing, and I learned the art of trashing to heal my patients. Let me tell you a few more stories. I got a call shortly after that from, it's a good thing you didn't know me in the 80s. I would have had you throw everything you owned away. I got a call from a woman, asthmatic so bad she had to sleep upward, lungs filled with fluid, was going to die, blue lips, only about 35 years of age. Couldn't leave the house, so I did a house call. Went to the house, and when I got there, she was screaming and choking at the top of her lungs to the maid because there was still dust on the top of one of the doors. And she said, this dust is killing me. And she was wheezing. As I walked around her house, because I love house calls, because you get to snoop, and I used to walk, and I walked, and I was in her bedroom at one point, and there was this crystal bowl, gorgeous crystal bowl on her dresser. And I said, oh, what's this? And I opened it up, and she goes, oh, it's a lock of hair from my dog. I thought, oh, that's nice. I love animals, love animals. And I said, oh, where's your dog? And she goes, it died 17 years ago. I didn't need to see that. And what I realized was this house, I said, oh, well, there's a Christmas tree, but it looks like it died about 15 years ago. She goes, I know, but my mother gave me that before she got Alzheimer's disease, and it's the last memory. And I'm like, oh, great. It was a museum of nightmares, memories from hell, death, you know, nothing about life. And I said, you know, I think I can help you. I said, I heard she was hardcore. I said, are you willing to do anything to get well? And she goes, absolutely. I said, I mean anything. And she said, yes. And I said, I'll be here at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Drove up to her house at 9 o'clock in the morning with my karate gi on and a machete right here. And I walked in her house, and the first thing I did is I started a fire in her fireplace, and I shoved that whole Christmas tree in it, and she went, she started wheezing. Went in the bedroom. I knew what was next. That dead dog's hair is going to go. Not only the hair, the crystal bowl. Get rid of it. I spent almost the whole day. She was on the phone. Come over. Come over to the house. There's a madman. He's throwing everything away. Television's gone. Bed's gone. Furniture gone. I took everything out of that house except her bed, a stereo, and a little rug. And that was it. I took everything out of the house. Everything she owned. We had a pile about 30 feet high in her backyard, and friends coming over ravaging through it. They figured she was dead soon anyway, and why not get it while it's hot? She said, I need to take a vacation. She took a vacation, and when she come back, her house was robbed. They took her bed, her stereo, and the little rug. And that just proved to me I didn't go far enough. And God came in and finished the project. The long and short of it is in 1 year, that woman was in the Olympic trials as a champion athlete, ran a marathon, and worked with horses, riding stadium jumping horses, around all that hay and all that alfalfa and all that horsehair. I used to go see her, and she was covered with dirt and dust from the riding rings and the alfalfa and the horsehair, breathing just fine. Okay? Let's blame it on dust and mold, right? There's a lot more to asthma. The power of throwing your garbage out. I went back to teach at a big holistic college back east, the one I told you about that had the scare with the poison ivy. They said, would you please go visit one of our wonderful staff members? She has colitis and it's ripping her up. And I went to visit her in her room, and I got to snoop a little more. And she had in her room all sorts of things. And I was talking to her, and she was doubled over in pain. Had colitis for a year. She was only about 25, and it was ripping her up. She was bleeding from the bowels. As I was looking around, I would ask her, it's kind of like that game you used to play, cold, cold, hot, warmer, hot, hot, real hot, real hot, real hot. That's what I do. I go, oh, what's this? And I listen to what I'm hearing. And when I got to a point where she had a certificate on the wall, I said, whoa, what's this? And she went, oh. She was getting some pain. I said, what's this? And she said, it's my college degree. Graduated from college. And I said, oh, you must have been good, you know, top of the class, magna cum laude. She wasn't just a college degree, she was the best of the best. And as I was beefing her up, she was hurting more. And I said, what did you major in? And she goes, I hated college. She goes, but my parents wouldn't support me. They said they wouldn't support me unless I went to college and stayed there. She goes, I hated every second of it. I said, really? And I was watching her in more pain. So I said, can I see this up close? And she said, yes. And I took it and I said, oh, and I slipped it out of the frame. And when you slip people's stuff out of the frame, you can tell already you're in their space, you're pushing their buttons. And she was like, oh, be careful. I went, I am. And I ripped it in half, and she went, oh! And doubled over in pain, threw up, had bleeding bowels that night, and in less than a week, her colitis was gone. Because I talked to her about letting this go. I've worked with a lot of Vietnam vets, and we've had to go over to the house and get rid of the photos from Vietnam, rip up the letters, do some crying, bury the killing knife, do you know what I'm saying? And get rid of the stuff and go on. I had another woman came to me with a breast cancer that was killing her. She was trying to deal with it and couldn't. The doctor said it was eating her up. And she asked me to come to the house. I went to the house. She's giving me a little tour. I'm checking in the medicine cabinet, looking around. And we go by this one door, and she doesn't say anything. And I said, what's in here? She goes, oh, no, don't go in there. Don't go in there. And I thought, warmer, warmer, hot, hot, hot. I said, oh, I won't. I said, what is this? And I went in, and you could almost hear the music. Ooh. I said, what's this? And she goes, oh. She goes, and she was holding her breath, so she told me. She goes, it's my daughter's room. And I said, it doesn't look like anybody's lived in here. And she said, my daughter died 17 years ago. But this room was still perfect like it was, except for the cobwebs, the mold, and all this unused stuff. And I said, you told me you were an artist. And she said, I am. And I said, well, I think I can help you with your breast cancer, but part of the work's going to be is just getting everything out of this room and getting rid of it. And she goes, well, I could keep some. I said, no, no, no. I said, I think we just have to throw it out, even smash some of it. Giving it away sometimes isn't good enough. Selling it in a garage sale, putting it in the garage, sometimes you got to just tip it over. Right now, I had it with all this stuff on the stage. I didn't want it anymore, so we tip it over. Sometimes that's a great healing. And she said, okay, I'll do it. I went over there the next day. We took the first load over to the dumpster. And when she let it go into the dumpster, she doubled over and said she had the worst breast pain she ever had since the cancer began. Long and short, less than a month, cancer gone. I could tell you 1,000 of these stories. We talk about the bowel, we talk about the intake, we talk about the movement, but let's not forget the power here of our ability to kill ourselves. The power we have to torture ourselves. How is it when Wall Street goes down, bleeding ulcers all over downtown Manhattan, right? Okay, we know we got the power to use this to kill ourselves. We've all done it. But do we have the power to turn it around and heal ourselves with this? Absolutely. And one of the best things I've found to do that is getting rid of the old you. I had a patient one time after their complete healing from cancer laid on the table in my office and said, Dr. Schulze, I don't even know who I am anymore. And I thought, yes, now we got to the beginning point here, right? I don't even know who I am anymore. Yes, that's what I want to hear. That person even changed their name. That's what I like to hear. Change your name. Get rid of that old person. That old person that you had set up perfectly to give you cancer or give you AIDS or give you Parkinson's disease or whatever it is to kill you. You got to get rid of that person. So all of you I know, hopefully, have not gotten to that point. But I come home every night and I wonder who the heck is bringing all this crap into my house. It's like there's some kind of conveyor belt in my side door. And Anisha said, it's you. You know, you end up with all this garbage in your house. So what I'm telling you is what I've seen that's killed my patients. And you all have one in your home. You all have one in your home right now. It's that box of papers that you're going to deal with someday. Yeah, you got one. That's a cancer. It's there. It's waiting to breed. And there's a box. And it's very important stuff, even though you haven't looked in it in 14 years. It's very important stuff. And I suggest to go home and very carefully pick up that box. Don't look in it. And take it to the dumpster and drop it in. Now, I've already seen a few people in here going like this or like this or like this or whatever. I know what I'm saying. If you haven't seen it in 6 months, you can live without it. Believe me, it's not you. Get rid of it. And go into that garage and start cleaning it out. Because your kids are going to curse you if you don't, because they're going to have to deal with it when you die. And it's just going to go in a garage sale, and that priceless memoir that's came through 3 generations is going to sell for 15 cents to someone down the street. That is not you. This stuff that we collect that's all around us. How many of you have clothes in your closet that you haven't fit into in 20 years? Okay? When you get slimmer or whatever you want to do, buy new clothes. Please. Who wants to be slim and walking around with a 1940s tie on? I cannot, thank you. I cannot overemphasize the power of this. I can't overemphasize it. Many people think, well, On a physiological level, I just don't understand how that box could have caused my liver abscess. I don't know either. I just know it does. I just saw it too many times. You would not believe the cleansing you get from dropping that box or getting rid of that old chair or throwing out that rug or dumping all your stuff. I have yet to find an herb or a juice that's that powerful. I asked Dr. Jensen, what is the most alkalinizing? We were studying alkalizing fruits and vegetables. What is the most purifying, cleansing, and detoxifying thing you know to heal the body? And I thought, I'm going to get it now. And he looked at me and he said, love. See how we have to sometimes think in a different way? It wasn't going to be an herb or a food. So this is just as important as the bowel cleansing, just as important as the food program, just as important as the exercise, because you do all of that with a bad attitude and you might not get well.